You've decided you're ready to become a parent, and suddenly you're overwhelmed with people who feel they have the right to inform you on the correct way to conceive, give birth, what fears you should have, and the proper way to parent. How do you filter through the opinions? How do you know what's trustworthy information and what's a myth or just plain outdated? Welcome to the Birth Ease podcast. Join your host Michelle Smith and her guests as they cut through the noise and fear by sharing valuable tips, tools, and proven methods that help you connect with your own inner wisdom as you navigate the sacred journey that is pregnancy, birth, and parenthood in a more relaxed and confident manner. This podcast does not constitute, nor is it intended, as medical advice.
Hello, Birth Ease families. Welcome to this heartfelt space. I'm your host, Michelle Smith, and I'm so grateful you are here. The month of October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and just as last year, I've chosen to dedicate the October episodes of the podcast to baby loss. I know it's a really difficult topic, yet 1 in 4 women have experienced some sort of pregnancy or infant loss. If you have not experienced it personally, chances are high that you know someone who has, and the grief of losing a child is often surrounded in silence. It's my intention to create a safe, welcoming, and informative space for not only bereaved families, and also for those who love and support them. And these episodes also will benefit my fellow birth professionals, giving them insights to the experience that bereaved families face and sage advice from incredible experts in the field of perinatal loss. Last year's episodes feature some truly raw and beautiful conversations with Matt and Nydia, who both lost babies at 39 weeks of pregnancy. Matt provides that perspective that's not often heard, the perspective of a grieving father. Nydia shares how her faith and her spiritual beliefs sustained her after the loss of her son to a placental abruption, which unfortunately almost cost her her own life. There's also a beautiful episode with Rabbi Elisheva Brenner. She shares her own journey of faith after losing her daughter and provides inspiration for grieving families. I was also incredibly grateful to be able to interview birth and bereavement doula, chaplain, educator, Amy Wright-Glenn. It's a raw and powerful episode on how to hold space for grief. There is an episode that gives tips on how to support a grieving family, and there's also a beautiful interview with Dr. Mordati. Episode 21, she shares her own journey of loss and the beautiful resource that she's created for parents expecting or wanting to conceive their rainbow baby. And if you're interested, there is also a meditation featured in last October's episodes. And it's a meditation designed for any parent or anyone grieving the loss of a child or a loved one. And this year, I'm excited to begin this series of interviews for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month with my conversation with Diana Kelley. Diana has over 30 years of experience in supporting families, and Diana uses her personal and career experiences to help grieving parents through their birth process and in the years of grieving that follow the death of a child. Diana provides grieving parents with the support they need when their life seems unfair and more than they can handle. As a bereaved parent herself, she knows how grief can affect every aspect of one's life, as well as the lives of their loved ones and friends. Diana became involved in childbirth education following the birth of her first child in 1981. By 1984, she was a certified childbirth educator working in her local hospital with hundreds of families each year and training and certifying new instructors. In 2012, after 31 years, she left the organization to expand her teaching and certifying instruction with Infants Remembered in Silence, IRIS, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that she founded in 1987 following the full-term stillbirth of her son. She is the author of the book, Sharing the Tears, which is available on the IRIS website. Welcome, Diana, to the Birthies podcast. I am so incredibly grateful, and I feel so blessed to have you here with me today.
Thank you, Michelle. It's been a great honor that you've asked. It's really an exciting thing for us to do.
Yeah, I'm grateful to have you here. There's so much that I want to chat with you about and have you bring your wisdom to families. And so do you mind beginning with what brought you to this work?
Sure. My journey started when I had my first child in 1981, and I became involved in the childbirth classes in Faribault, and very active in it, loved teaching the classes, loved being involved. And then I had my second child, everything was fine. And then when I had my third child, he was full term and stillborn. And I kept asking my doctor, why? Why did this happen? What happened? Something had to be wrong. I had an autopsy order before he was delivered, and they couldn't find anything that was wrong. Granted, technology was different than what it is now, but they still couldn't find anything at the time as to why he passed away. Now I believe it was because he was too perfect to stay, and I also believe that it was because this organization needed to be started. I asked my doctor, like I said, repeatedly, and he kept saying it was because I needed to start an organization to help other people who were experiencing loss, and I kept saying, no, you got the wrong person. And he just started sending people to me. So I started the organization unofficially in 1985, but all the legal documentation and all the process of forming a nonprofit organization was finished in 1987, so 33 years ago. And it's been an unbelievable 33 years. There's way more people who have losses than what people could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And it's just not something that people talk about.
Yeah, I agree. So how did you come up with the name IRIS for your organization? I know the acronym.
Right, that's the acronym. It stands for Infants Remembered in Silence. It started because when we first started the organization, I had a friend who was helping me, and we were using a different name. It really wasn't a great name. It was something that just really wasn't appealing to parents. It didn't make people want to listen to what you had to say or to hear about the organization. So we always had used the iris as our logo for those 2 years beforehand. And so when we became incorporated and did all the things legally, we chose the name IRIS because that was what our logo was. So we did it backwards. We had the acronym picked first, and then we sat down with some books and we went through the books backwards looking for words, not sentences or anything, just words. And it didn't take very long at all to go infant. Then we went to silence was the easy one to come with. And it took us probably 3 hours to get remembered. Then the end just fell into place. It's a very unusual name. I think it explains to people immediately what it is. It also, according to a lot of people, the iris is one of the most fragile flowers that there is. They're also very dainty and delicate, and their lifetime is very, very short, so it also fits with the name.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
Wow.
It's a hard subject for people to talk about, but giving it something soft to go with it also helps. And having that iris is an amazing thing. We have people who drop off iris bulbs all the time, people who send them to us. It's amazing to see how much that flower means to people.
Wow. Yeah, and there is so much silence.
There is.
Around pregnancy and infant loss.
I know when my son was born, I had 2 other kids at home, and I remember sitting on the sofa and total silence. Total silence. My kids were playing, but they were very, very quiet, and the TV wasn't on. It was just total silence. And I think that's heart-wrenching as well.
Yeah. Yeah. As Iris grew and expanded, where did the work take you?
Well, it started out where it was providing bereavement support package to the hospital. And because I taught the childbirth classes, I knew the hospital staff very well.
Yeah.
So it made it very, very easy to say, hey, can I take these in and would you give them out to the families? I should back up a little bit and say that when my son was born, hospital protocol said that the baby could be on the floor for 20 minutes.
Wow.
Anybody who's had a child knows that it takes longer than 20 minutes to clean mom up after she's delivered, especially if she's had an episiotomy or anything like that, even just to get bath and get situated.
Mm-hmm.
This would have been gone and I would not get to see him. The fact that I knew the hospital staff came into play again because they let me do things that no one else had ever been allowed to do. I got to hold him for 3 hours, which was absolutely unheard of in 1985.
Yeah.
Totally unheard of. I have pictures of him. Not a whole lot, but I do have pictures of him. There's probably 15 of him, I would say.
Wow.
Again, very unusual, not something that you find very many pictures of from back then. The other thing is that because I got to hold him, I got to create some extra memories. So about a week after he was delivered, the head of the OB department, who was a very good friend, called me and said, and I'll never forget it, did we make it better or worse by letting you see him? And to me, that was such a strange question. I'm like, well, of course she made it better. And you really wouldn't have let me see him. And she told me that that's what the hospital protocol was. That was 20 minutes and that was it. What I didn't realize is some of the nurses who I didn't know were having a fit about the fact that he got to stay on the floor. There were nurses who put their jobs on the line to let that happen.
Wow.
There was a doctor who put his job on the line because he let it happen, because it didn't fit within protocol, and some of the nurses who had been there for many, many years did not want that done. Protocol said that 20 minutes on the floor and then I was to be shipped to a different floor. But because I taught the childbirth classes and I spent a lot of time on the floor, they let me stay there. And honestly, if I have to be in the hospital for anything, I want to be on the OB floor because that's what I know. That's the experience I'm most comfortable with. So for me, that was not going to work to be sent to a different floor. And obviously, having him with me was very, very important to me.
Right.
So I think that not everyone had that opportunity. I also realized that a lot of the people who I had taught childbirth classes to, who just didn't come back, I have since found out that their child had passed away and no one said anything to us. There was no obituaries allowed in the newspaper. There was nothing on the radio. Those things just simply were not allowed. It wasn't that you couldn't afford to pay for it or anything else. It just was not allowed.
Yeah.
So my son's obituary was one of the very first ones that was ever in our paper.
Wow. Wow.
So things were different. People don't think about how much things have changed in the past 30 years. It's tremendous.
Yeah.
Huge changes.
Yeah, because even before that, the thinking was that parents shouldn't see the baby at all.
Right. Right. And we've worked with many moms who are in their 80s and older who had a child that passed away. They don't know where the child was buried at. They don't know what the cause of death is. They don't know anything. They know nothing about this child other than the fact they gave birth and then the baby was whisked away. We worked with one of our volunteers that she volunteered for many years and knitting and crocheting for us, but she never told us why. But we always knew that there had to have been a reason because she liked to make the little boy blankets and she had a specific size that she liked to make. Well, it turned out that she told me that she had a baby that had passed away. And now just keep in mind this woman's in her 90s. She was 92 at the time. And so she said, I don't know anything about him. And I'm like, well, do you want to know? And she was like, well, yes, but honey, I've tried. I've hunted for 57 years trying to find where he's at, trying to find any information. Her husband had passed away and the doctors had told him years before when the baby was born not to mention the baby ever again, that she would just forget about it.
Ugh.
Well, that didn't happen.
No.
That's not going to happen.
Right.
And he did what the doctors told him to do because they thought it was the best thing that they could do at the time. They thought it was for the best. They didn't intentionally mean to hurt anybody. They did what they thought was best. And now we know that that's not right. And so we asked this mom if her name was Anna. We asked Anna if she wanted to know anything about her son, and she said yes, she did. Well, because of the proclamations that have been signed through the federal government with October being Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Month, and October 15th being Awareness Month, we were more aware of how to find babies who had passed away years ago and how to find where they were. What we ended up finding out was because Minnesota has the certificate of birth resulting in stillbirth certificate that's out there. A lot of states have that. We were able to track this particular child very quickly. She'd been hunting for 57 years, and within 3 hours, I was pretty sure I knew where he was.
Wow.
And another volunteer who worked for a museum in a different county, I called her because this is we always double check. We always double, triple check. What she ended up doing was she works with genealogy, and so she knew how to get a hold of people at the state to find the proper records on everything. She ended up having a conversation with somebody at the state, and they sent her the paperwork verifying where this child was buried at. They sent her the certificate of birth resulting in stillbirth certificate. They sent her a documentation that told her everything about the delivery. So it's basically told when he was born, it told his cause of death, it told mom's name, dad's name, all kinds of information that were on there. And what we found out was that he was a big baby. The cord was wrapped around his neck and his arm. She thought that he had died because she'd gotten upset with a neighbor kid and had hollered at this kid, and she thought she raised her blood pressure too much. And so she blamed herself.
Yeah.
She had no control over those things. So the interesting part was that they sent her this documentation, and she received it on a Saturday. It was literally 2 days after she had made the inquiry, which was very unusual that they would move that quickly.
Yeah.
It was sent to her home rather than being sent to the IRS office, which was also strange because she didn't know if they had her home address. So we went through all the information. We went to Anna's house on Sunday and told her what we had found, that I had the information from the cemetery, that Vanessa had the information from the state. And she was so funny. We asked her if she wanted to go with us to the cemetery because we were going to go see if we could find him. It was in the fall. She's 92 years old. We're in kind of a rush here. She wanted to go with us. I asked her, do you want to go with? And she beat us to the car. I had to grab her coat and her purse and leave a note for her family so they knew where she was at and lock the door. It was pretty funny. She was pretty excited about getting to go there. And we drove around the cemetery once we got there. We drove around the outside of the cemetery. And then it didn't take us too long at all to figure out that where exactly he was at. He was buried between two markers, but he was in an unmarked grave. And so we were able to match that up because we could find those two other babies that were there. He was on a great big hill, and he was buried by a whole bunch of nuns. A lot of nuns were right in that area, and they were kind of surrounded where all the babies were. And so we gave her time with her son, and she was so funny. She had never had ice cream for supper before. Well, we were leaving the cemetery. It's getting kind of dark, and we decided we'd stop and get something to eat. And the only place in this area that we could find that was open was an ice cream shop. Stopped and had ice cream for supper, and then we had got home. And she came into the office the next day and she told us that she hadn't slept so good in 57 years.
Wow. Wow.
We took pictures of her at the cemetery. We took, all kinds of things that we could do. And it was really interesting because her other children knew about this baby that had passed away, but they did not know that she was looking for him. You just have to have the right connection to make things happen sometimes.
Yeah.
The more people you have involved with that, the better and faster and easier it is.
Wow. What a beautiful story.
So, Iris works with a lot of different people of a lot of different ages. So it's very interesting. And now Anna has passed away herself, and at least she got to tell her family and tell them where he was.
Yeah.
She was able to mark his grave. She got to do a lot of things that she wouldn't have gotten to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And when women are nearing their time to transition from this life, they remember all of their children.
Well, they do. Have you ever gone to a nursing home and had somebody say something to you? My car has Iris decals on it. And I pulled up in front of the nursing home one day, and there's 3 older ladies sitting outside. And they're like, oh, you're the one that works with the babies. I'm like, yep. And 2 of them were verbal. One of them was nonverbal. She'd had a stroke and wasn't able to talk, but her best friend was sitting next to her. And they all 3 started telling me about the babies that had passed away.
Wow.
And the one that wasn't verbal kept poking her friend. Tell her more, which was really neat that they were able to do that. But they don't forget.
No.
They don't forget at all.
No, they don't. And I think that's that fallacy that's beginning to change.
Well, it used to be that people would think that you're not going to remember if you don't get to see, hold, and touch. We discovered that wasn't real. Then we discovered that people forget, and even if they can't communicate with you very well, their bodies still remember.
Mm-hmm.
They still know themselves that this is when my child passed away. And I think that that's something that's really hard to comprehend. But at a certain point, your thinking changes from being, I'm never going to be able to forget this. This is a huge impact on my life, to things changing to where you're afraid you're going to forget it.
Mm.
And it becomes your mission to make sure that others don't forget.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just sitting with that. It's very profound.
It's something that really becomes a mom's personal goal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, as Iris has grown, what other types of support have you started providing families?
Now what we have, I can kind of go through those things for you. Iris has changed in its services over the past 33 years. It started out only being the bereavement packets in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Then somebody said, I wish I would have had clothing. So then we developed clothing here in town that's gentle on the baby's skin, easy to get them in and out of, and it's absolutely beautiful. It fits babies based on their type of needs because not all babies are perfect. They're very forgiving as far as their shape and their movement, like that.
Mm.
That was the next thing. And then we went from having outfits that would fit a newborn all the way down to, well, now it will be for a baby up to 10 gestational weeks. So that outfit is about 2 inches big. So it's really changed. We also had people who said, I wish I would have had a blanket that matched. Oh, well, yeah, of course you do. Now we have blankets and hats and the outfit in a box container. There's also a teddy bear that's in the box with the clothing. It's called a clothing set. There's a teddy bear that's in there. And those came to be because we had worked with a woman who was a Sunday school teacher of preschool kids. And they saved all their Lenten pennies to give to Iris. And when they showed up, the teachers and some other people showed up with this cookie container that had the slats in the sides of it.
Mm.
And all the pennies stayed in place, which I was very surprised by. And there was some quarters and silver things in there as well. But there was also a couple bigger bills. And what they asked us to do, and there was a little note from the kids that said, we want you to buy teddy bears for all the babies that go to heaven, because if they have a teddy bear with them, they won't be afraid.
Oh my gosh.
So every child we've worked with since has had a teddy bear.
Oh.
And anytime we get donations that come in from kids, and we have kids who do Kool-Aid stands for us and sell bracelets for us, all kinds of different things. Any funds that come in for donations that are from children go to support that Bears for Baby program. And it's amazing. So now a baby who is 10 gestational weeks will have a bear they can almost hold it. They're pretty tiny, but they can get their arms around them and things for pictures. Babies who are too small to hold the teddy bear will have the teddy bear holding them.
Mm.
So we take some pretty spectacular pictures that way. Those are two things that have really changed, that have made a huge impact for parents, and is a huge support system for them, just to know if their baby had clothing. Having diapers that will actually fit a baby.
Mm.
That's also something that's very unusual, kind of hard to find, but they are actual diapers. That's huge for the parents, because dressing and bathing the baby is kind of a mom thing. Putting that first diaper on is a dad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have the dads put those diapers on those babies that are 18 weeks. So it's pretty powerful for them as well. We have a lot of things that we have the advocates going into the hospitals and the funeral homes working with the child. So those are huge items as far as creating memories, which are absolutely unbelievable. They have a lot of pictures. On average, we take about 100 pictures per baby. We also have, time with them taking the bath. We have putting lotion on, dressing them. We take handprints and footprints that we use an inkless system so that we don't have to worry about getting ink on the baby's hands and feet because it will tattoo them.
Yeah.
Then we also that's can be a huge thing. We also use some special materials to make sculptures of the baby's hands and feet, so they have a 3D replica of the hands and feet. And those things are just absolutely unbelievable to have. Beautiful keepsakes. We also have support groups. We do one-on-one support with families, just so they can call in. COVID has really kind of caused some problems with us for support groups. People are afraid to come in.
Mm-hmm.
So we understand that. And the Zoom stuff that we've tried to do has not been real successful. People just aren't really comfortable with it. So that's some of the things that we do. We also have a lot of different events that we do that would fall into that category. We have the October 15th service that we do here at the office in front of the statue that's called I Knew You in the Womb, and that is a life-size bronze statue of an angel weeping over an empty cradle. That's pretty powerful. We also have a lot of locations across the state of Minnesota that have given us proclamations. Every city in the state of Minnesota has been contacted, and we asked them for a proclamation making October 15th Pregnancy and Infant Loss Day in their community as well. Half of the state mandates that say that the month of October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. So that's a huge thing as well. Huge for a lot of parents. They have the opportunity to go to their city and pick up the proclamation. They have the opportunity to do a lot of things in their community that gives them a lot more validation about their child's life and how important it is. So it's pretty important for them to do that. It's all up to them, whatever they want it to be. We give them options. We give them suggestions, and they can take it from there, however they want. Or they can be involved in things that we're running that they can show up at, like that service on the 15th. We also do a holiday service of remembrance that has been held for I think this is the 27th year at the Chapel of the Good Shepherd on Shattuck campus, which is a private boarding school here in Faribault. It's actually a chapel that was built over 170 years ago in memory of a baby girl.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty perfect for us to be there. So that's pretty important to do as well. We also have some fundraisers that have actually turned into memorial events for some of the parents. We do a huge walk and a run on Thanksgiving morning, and we usually have around 2,000 people in attendance,
Wow.
which is huge. I never thought that would go because it's a holiday. The same thing with the holiday service as well. Parents really want to be involved in things, and they want to have their child remembered during the holidays because the holidays are about kids. So if they can remember their child first, it makes it easier to continue on and do the other things that you're required to go to.
Yeah.
So that's pretty important too.
Yeah.
There's so many things that we do throughout the year that are beautiful little events. We do a water lantern release. We weren't able to do that again this year because of COVID, but we actually release lanterns either on a lake or on a river, and it's beautiful. It's at night. It's absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. There's many, many things that we do there to support the families and to give them options to take part in. Those are the types of things that you need. Someplace where people get what's going on. They understand your feelings and emotions. You don't have to explain to them because they already understand.
Yes.
They get it.
Yes.
And that's who you need to be around. People talk all the time about they've lost all their friends because nobody wants to hear about the baby anymore.
Yes.
Which I'm sure you've heard that quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's huge. They don't feel like they fit in anymore. And that's something that we don't like to hear. We want to make sure that they feel like they fit in, that they belong, and that they're a value, and that their child was a value. Those are huge things to know that your baby is a value to the community, that you have pictures to prove that they're real.
Yeah.
Those are huge.
Yeah. I feel it's so valuable when you can have something tangible of your baby, and it's not always possible. A dear, dear friend, I'm so close with this family. They had been trying for years to conceive and were finally pregnant and became pregnant with twins. And then they lost the twins this last couple weeks, miscarried. And it's just so sad and so devastating. But I was so grateful to hear that her OB made sure that she had a picture of the sonogram showing that there were these two babies, and they have that tangible to hold on to.
That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we encourage people to do is to take part in different events because that gives you more items for memories. When we do an event, we tell people take pictures if we allow you to do that, whether it be before the service or after the service. Sometimes we don't allow it during the service. But then it gives you more things to put into a scrapbook that become the baby's memories, the baby's life. I was at this event for you. It gives them more of those things, which is very difficult if you don't have any keepsakes at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have one family that goes out and they take pictures of the sunrise and sunset on the day that their child had passed away, their anniversary day. And that's all they have are pictures of sunrises and sunsets on that day, they're beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous.
That is really beautiful. I love too that she had the foresight that when she did miscarry the babies, they had already planned to find a spot and bury the babies and plant a tree. And so that they have that to honor and remember these babies.
That's huge.
Mhm.
That's just what a wonderful idea.
Yeah,
What a great way to remember them.
yeah. It was really a beautiful way, I think. I am kind of at a loss for words because I'm so close with them.
It makes it hard.
It's like, yeah, it's like losing your nieces and nephews or something.
It touches your heart. It
Yeah,
affects a lot of people.
yeah,
It just, with every child's passing, there's people who cry, and if they don't know about it, it's hard for people to be supportive of you.
yeah. That's true. That's true. That's why I'm so grateful that things are really changing around it. As you were talking, I'm thinking you must have seen so much change in these years.
Oh, the change is unbelievable. Change is unbelievable. When the city of Faribault gave us a park that we could put a marker in, and so we have a marker, it's upright marker. It stands about probably about 4 or 5 feet tall in there somewhere. And then the OB floor had planted a tree.
Mm,
It's an oak tree. And just to watch that tree grow and to see the changes in that marker, and right now it needs to be fixed a little bit, but to see those changes just in those items
wow.
that you can watch growing, you can watch changing, it has been huge, absolutely huge. And to look back and to think that back in '87 when those items were put in, everybody figured we were just going to go away. They're just gonna go away. Nobody's ever gonna remember about this. We won't have to deal with this. We won't have to remember about this organization. Those types of things were definitely in place. Then when we created the common burial, which is something that babies who are miscarried
Hmm.
at our hospital or whose remains are brought into the hospital can be buried at that common burial site. And for people to say, oh, it's been 33 years, you might have what, 10, maybe 15 babies there. And when you tell them it's more like 780 some,
Wow.
786, I think is the number. People are floored that the numbers are that high. They're very, very surprised. So that was a huge change for them as well. I do remember a time when we were interviewed by the paper and they asked what's the one thing that you want people to know. My response was, we're not going away. We're extremely busy. There's a lot of people who have children that pass away, and just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah.
And the comments from the community were unbelievable. People saying things that we'd help them, we'd help their friend, we'd help their sister, and multiple people talking about it then. And that seemed to really change things. And it's also different that the community here is, we're small, for one. The community as a whole has kind of taken ownership of Iris, which is really kind of a neat thing to say because it means that they know about us. They know who we are. They know what we do. We had a family who was delivering here, and their grandparents and things were not from town, so they were staying at one of the local motels. And the receptionist at the motel said, can't help but overhear the conversation. And she said to them, have you heard of Iris? No, she didn't, but one of her employees had worked with us, and so she went and got that employee, and they talked to him. Then they went to breakfast, and they're at a small restaurant. Again, you can't help but overhear the conversation behind you. And the people at the restaurant said, this is just another customer. Said,
Mm.
have you heard about Iris? Then they went to the flower shop, and the florist said, have you heard about Iris? By the time they got to the hospital, they asked the nurses when they walked onto the floor, well, what's the deal with this organization, Iris? And she said, oh, don't worry, they're already here.
Wow.
And so that gives you a better idea as to how the community reacts to it and how people are supportive. But again, if they don't know that you've had a loss, it's very difficult for them to be supportive and to offer suggestions and ways to help or to give you a hug. Those things are huge. Getting a hug is a huge thing. You don't have to say anything. Just a hug will tell people more than words.
Yeah. That's just amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You
Really.
wouldn't think there's enough people to know what you're actually doing.
Yeah. And that you're not alone because that's the thing, the grief. Grief anyway can feel isolating, but losing a child, I think it's even more so. And to have an organization that can support you, knowing that there's people that can support you is huge. But in your community, to have it just be a part of the community and everyone knows that that resource is there, what an impact that has to make for families.
No, it has to be. It has to be a huge impact for them. And when you have people coming from out of town or from out of state who contact us looking for resources in their community and because somebody, a florist or someone told them about it, it's pretty amazing.
It is. It is. And so Iris has branched out to train advocates for families. Yes?
Yes, yes, we've trained. Oh, I don't know the number of people that we've trained, but we've got advocates who are in Florida, Texas, Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin, all over Minnesota. We obviously don't have enough. Some of them are still active, some of them are not active. So it really becomes something where we continue on the training so people are able to help others. And one of the major things that we request, and I know it's a strange requirement, but we don't want somebody who hasn't been affected by a child's death to be a part of it. It needs to be somebody who's been there. Either they've been the parent who's had a child that passed away, or they've got their sister, or it's their best friend. There has to be a connection. It can't be somebody who just walk into this training and think you're going to be able to understand what people are feeling. You can't. And we don't want you to understand it because it's so terrible.
Right.
But I've been in many rooms with moms and dads and nurses, and the nurses are changing shifts, and I might be leaving. And the family will tell her nurse, thank you. And then the nurse is standing right there where they reach out and grab me and give me a hug and a kiss and tell me thank you, and they'll be in touch. And the nurses are sometimes offended by that. And I try to understand their point of view, but I also say to them, but the first question they asked me when I walked in the door was, have you had a baby die?
Mm-hmm.
And if I say yes, I'm treated one way. But if I have somebody in there who says no, but my best friend, they're treated a little bit better. They're treated more like what I am. But when it's a nurse, because they just think it's the medical point of view and they don't want that connection, they're not treated the same way.
Mm.
Every time that happens, I'm very surprised by it.
Yeah.
Because I think the nurse staff is just incredible and loving people. And I understand why they would be hurt by that.
Yeah.
But I also understand that we need to have people who have been there, who have experienced it.
Yes. Well, and I found that even in my work with birth trauma. If I have a family, a mom sitting in my office talking to me and sharing their story, and if they ask and I can share mine, there is often this look of relief on their face
Oh, absolutely.
because they know that I get it.
You get it, and you don't think they're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have people that come to support group meetings and they're embarrassed to say it, but they hear the baby crying.
Yeah.
And I look at them and I go, oh, yeah, that happened to me too. But if somebody doesn't tell you that that's normal, you think you're ready to be locked up somewhere
Right.
because it's so scary.
Yeah, and I feel like society as a whole is so well, I don't think we grieve well as a whole anyway, but I feel like especially with pregnancy loss, infant loss, there's almost this rush to, well, just get over it. And and it doesn't work that way.
It does not work that way. It does not. And I think the other thing that to me is very scary is that our society thinks that everything has to be done within 3 days as far as the burial or
Yes.
cremation or whatever you choose to do. There's no law. That's just a cultural thing. There's no law that says you have to be buried or cremated within 3 days. And so when a funeral director or someone tries to slow a family down with a baby, they're like, "You mean we can do this next week?" Absolutely, you can do this next week. There's nothing that says you can't take some time. But I think that some of our grandparents and aunts and uncles want us to push through it and do it in 3 days so if they don't have to be uncomfortable anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't understand that you're not going to get over it in 3 days. You're not going to get over it in a year. You're not going to get over it in 3 years. It's forever going to be a part of you. It's going to change everything about the way you think about life. It's going to change every aspect of your life. People are very concerned with the fact that, well, she's so much different than what she was before. And I like to point out, well, if her baby would have lived, their lives would have been completely different. They would not have been the same people as what they were in their early 20s when they're going out partying. Now they're in their 30s. Their baby has passed away. Of course, their life has changed.
Mm-hmm.
They're never going to be the same. Never going to be the same as what you were before. They just need to find now how to cope with that new normal.
Right.
How to live without the baby being there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with time, we can learn to cultivate some resiliency. And that takes time. That takes time.
Yes.
But I do appreciate the way that the tragic loss of your little boy has sparked such a gift to so many people, so many families.
Everybody wants their child to have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I know his purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think that that's something that a lot of people get, that they don't easily see their child's purpose. But maybe it was somebody who came into the hospital who was a new physician or a new nurse who got to learn something because of your child.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are difficult. It just happens to be that in my case, it's a pretty visual type of thing, and we're kind of out there, and I think I know what his purpose was.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a job that you would do by your choice.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It finds
It
you.
does.
I think almost
It does.
when I started in this work, one of my dear, dear families, we were, just so close. They're like bonus children, right? To me.
Hmm.
And they lost their sweet daughter at 39 weeks. And I supported them at the birth and postpartum. And then one of my other couples that I'm really close with, she had a placental abruption and lost her son at 39 weeks, 5 weeks later. And then we had, it was my daughter's, it's so hard to explain, my daughter's husband's brother's wife's sister, if that makes any sense. She was 18.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of following that one out. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, you got to follow it out. Yeah. But she was 18 and died in a car wreck within that time as well. All of this happened, I think, within about 6 weeks. And it changed my life forever.
Hmm. I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this work found me. It called me.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's deep, deep work. But I feel like there's so much value in having someone that can just sit with you in your grief. They don't even have to say much. It's just having somebody that can sit with you, having somebody that can hear your story as often as you need to tell it. It's someone that doesn't try to fix it, because you can't fix it. Our instinct is we want to fix it and make it better, and you just can't.
You can't. No. But it takes a special person to be able to sit quietly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's such a gift. It's such a gift.
When I first started doing the support groups, I remember people feeling like there had to be a conversation going all the time. And I remember thinking that just doesn't really feel like something that needs to be done after every person tells their story or has something to say.
Mm-hmm.
I started counting to 30. And then if someone hadn't said something, I might choose to say something. But sitting there counting to 30 is hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think silence is just as important as words, if not more so. It says way more.
Yeah. And sometimes someone's at a loss for words,
Mm-hmm.
and they're sitting with those raw, intense feelings. And in that silence, it gives them space to even begin to articulate or not.
I don't think that people who are grieving comprehend or know how long they're being silent.
Mm.
I don't think that when they finish half of a sentence and they don't get all the way through it, and it might take them a minute before they can finish the sentence, I don't think they realize that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're in this weird space almost. And there's this time distortion
Right?
that even happens. We're in shock. That's what it is. You're in shock.
You're in shock, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the time distortion, that's a good term.
Yeah.
That kind of explains how we feel when that happens to us. When we have a child pass away, everything is like a bad nightmare, and you're watching somebody else go through this. It couldn't possibly be you.
Yeah. Or when you finally have a deep sleep and then you wake up in the morning. I'm going to get teary
Hmm.
because I just lost my mother-in-law and my stepmom last year within 6 months of each other. And it's coming up on the anniversary of losing my beloved stepmother. And I just remember waking up and your brain is searching like, oh my gosh, did this really happen? This didn't really happen, did it? And I think that's even happening a bit with the pandemic.
Oh,
I think people are waking up too and going, wait, it's still going on? It's over, right? It's over. Or was it just a dream? It's that same sort of our mind, our subconscious, trying to sort through this new reality that we did not even see coming.
it's a hard place to be.
Yeah,
And then you feel guilty
yeah,
because you slept well,
yeah.
which causes more tears.
hmm And I think there's a lot of guilt that can happen for families, especially for mothers. They can blame themselves so readily if they experience pregnancy loss.
I think it's something that when you find out that the child's passed away, the first thing that my mind did was went back and replayed every single solitary thing that I had done from the time I had gotten pregnant all the way through. So everything that I had done,
hmm
I could tell you in order. We had this for supper. We went here. We did this. We did this. We did this. Did any of those things cause this? It's automatic. And no matter a silly thing like ran after another child, did that cause it?
hmm
And then you start to believe the wise tales about putting your hands over your head, that caused it,
Yeah,
and all those types of things that people tell you that we all know is bogus, but it's there.
yeah,
It's hard to.
yeah. Well, and I feel like as mothers, we just feel like our inherent duty is to protect our child. And when we weren't able to do that in our mind, the guilt and the self blame can become pervasive.
Mhm. That's definitely our responsibility. Our responsibility to get them here safe,
Yeah,
and we can't necessarily have that happen.
yeah.
Or if it's a child that dies afterwards, I should have known.
hmm
I should have seen if there was a problem.
If only.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like support is so important. Like you said, understanding that these thoughts or these sensations, like hearing the baby cry, all of that, understanding that those are normal feelings and to get that support to help sort through them as well.
Yeah. If you don't have the support, you're really out there swimming in the ocean all by yourself.
hmm hmm And the wonderful thing is, there's so much more support now than there used to be.
Oh, absolutely, there is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people are a little bit more willing to talk about it.
hmm
Where in 1985, nobody wanted to hear about a baby that was stillborn. Nobody wanted to know about a baby who died from SIDS. Or if they did want to know about it, a child that had died from SIDS, they wanted to blame you.
Mm.
You could have done something. We've had families where church members have come up to them after the child's funeral and said, "What did you do to cause this?"
Oh my gosh.
And it was a child who died from cancer.
Oh my gosh.
But they have to have someone to blame.
Yeah.
And that's not right. That is not right. When a child dies, it doesn't mean that anyone did anything.
hmm
Yes, there are those who have, but those are not as many as what there are of the other
Yeah.
people who had no choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. So, the project that brought us together is building more awareness. So, can you share about Iris's mission? I guess you could call it a mission to have cities light up on October 15th in honor and in remembrance of our babies gone too soon.
Absolutely. It's something that we've done it here for quite a few years. We've asked the community to make proclamations declaring October 15th as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day. But we've also, in the last few years, started in having different locations lit in pink and blue in honor of the day. Started out with having the Lowry Avenue Bridge in Minneapolis lit. We're about 45 minutes south of Minneapolis in St. Paul. And that's like not far. So we would go up and we would look at these pretty lights and do our candlelight service at 7 o'clock. But then we started to expand it. Then we went to the next one was the 35W Bridge, which not very far away from each other. Again, both of them are over the Mississippi, so it was, right close to Mississippi. It was easier to do two bridges together. And then it just kind of expanded. And now there's a push from different groups all across the country and around the world. And we've been contacting different businesses and different city locations to have buildings and things lit in pink and blue, bright pink and blue for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day on October 15th. We choose the bright pink and blue because light pink, the baby pink and baby blue, you can't really see them. And so we go with the bright so they come out looking more like a pink and a blue. We've had quite a huge success in doing it. And we happened to reach out to you because we wanted to have the city of Orlando have some things lit, and they wanted someone local, and I happened to find you. That's pretty special. So different locations that Iris has managed to get lit. There's locations in Toronto, Canada. The city sign is going to be lit. City Hall Tower is going to be lit. In Delaware, there's the Legislative Dome is going to be lit. In Hawaii, there's the Aloha Tower. It's in Honolulu. It's going to be lit. The Sky Bridge in Davenport, Iowa. Martin Luther King Bridge in Fort Wayne, Indiana. There's different locations in Kansas. There's the Flint Hill Discovery Center in Kansas. There's literally, I have 3 full pages of different locations that Lori has worked on to get lit. In Massachusetts, there's some bridges. There's the Burns Memorial Bridge in Worcester and the Bunker Hill Bridge in Boston. In Minnesota, which we have quite a few here, we have the Anger Tower in Duluth, the Spurry Tower in England, France Avenue in Edina. That's the whole street is lit up in pink and blue.
Wow.
Washington Square building in Minneapolis. There's the St. Anthony Falls Bridge, which is the 35W Bridge. The IDS Tower, Lowry Avenue Bridge, Blue Min Hotel. The Shell Brewery chimney will be lit in red because they don't have any other colors they can use. The OMB Bank in Rochester. Highway 7 Bridge in St. Louis Park. I mean, there's a lot in Minnesota. There's some in North Carolina. There's some in Nebraska, the Woodman Life Center. Mid-Hudson Bridge in New York. The Rundell Library in Rochester, New York. In Ohio, there's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's been done a couple of years. Crystal Bridge in Oklahoma City. In Oregon, there's a Union Railroad Bridge in Salem, Oregon that's being done. Pennsylvania has the FMC Tower, and that's in Philadelphia. South Dakota, this is a really neat one here. The Falls at Falls Park in South Dakota, which is absolutely beautiful. It's a fall, not a big straight fall like what you might be thinking of. This is a slow, gradual waterfall. And the whole thing is lit in pink and blue. It's absolutely beautiful. The state capitol in Nashville is being lit. The Virginia Aquarium and Marine Science Center is also being lit. That's just some of them. We're hearing from different locations daily that they're agreeing to do it, or that they're calling back and saying, hey, we need somebody in this town who's in our community to make the request. Completely understandable. And if somebody wants to do that, we'll help them, like what we did with you, provide you with the information, the documentation, the letter. All you have to do is submit it to them. And you want to tell them a little bit about what you have going on in Orlando?
Yeah, they're going to light up different art sculptures, and they're going to light up the Amway Center Spire, the Tower of Light, the Colonial Drive Overpass, the Lake Eola Fountain, and the Orlando sign. So I'm really so excited about this, that Orlando is going to take part in honoring our babies. And I'm just so excited to get to drive around and photograph the different spots and just have a moment, just a moment to take it all in.
Don't forget at 7 o'clock to light a candle wherever you're at.
Yeah, would you share about the Wave of Light for the listeners?
Yeah, the Wave of Light is, this whole thing on October 15th was originally designed to be an in-home remembrance service for families. And what's happened is because we have so many places being lit, there's memorials like the one we have here at the office. that people started gathering together to do their lighting. So at 7 o'clock, we asked people to light a candle and to have it be lit for at least an hour
Mm-hmm.
in memory of your child or any child that you've known that has passed away. It's kind of a neat thing because you do it in your time zone. So as you're starting to blow out your candles at 8 o'clock, in Minnesota, we're starting to light ours.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a neat thing to have that happen all the way around the world. And it starts at the international time zone, right where it changes is where it begins. So it's kind of neat to think of that all those people are participating in it.
Yeah.
Lots of people from around the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been amazing.
It's also amazing. When we do our service here, we do a live broadcast of it. And it's in the dark. It's usually very cold and windy and kind of rainy in October here. So we still broadcast the whole thing, and we have people from England, Sweden, all over Europe who log on and watch it and tell us that they're there and that they're lighting candles with us at 7, which is really pretty spectacular.
That is.
I never thought somebody would do something like that because it's pretty early in the morning in England to have that happen.
Yeah. 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 But it's such a significant and important day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of us devote the whole day
Right.
to honoring and remembering. And here in Orlando, we have the Angel of Hope statue that you can go on Facebook or you can Google it, and I'll have it in the show notes. And there's an event.
Well, and if it's something that you can't attend an event because they're not doing anything at the Angel of Hope, you can still take a white flower to the angel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At any time during the day or in the day before, the day after, however you want to do it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thought. That's a beautiful thought. I love that.
We have people here who come and leave things in the cradle of the angel all the time. Right now, there's a little minion out there, and there's a set of angel wings. There's a basket of flowers sitting in front of it.
Oh, wow.
We have balloons there. We've had little, candy treats and all kinds of things left inside of there.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they'd have the same thing there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just amazing. So thank you for everything that you have done for families. It's just extraordinary.
Well, thank you so much for everything that you also do for families and for taking care of Orlando for the 15th. I think it's going to have a huge impact for the families in your area. I think it's going to be pretty special.
Yeah, I do too. So if you had a pearl of wisdom or some thoughts that you would like to leave the families, the listeners with, what would that be?
I think the first thing is be gentle with yourself.
Yes.
I think that's something that we're not raised to be a patient community. And it makes it very difficult for a parent if they're not patient with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have huge expectations. Expect nothing of family and friends because they aren't going to be there in the way that you think they should. Which is kind of a sad statement, but I also think it's something that they don't know how to help you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what to do for you, and so they tend to walk away. People say that they learn who their true friends are when they've had a loss like this.
Yeah.
And I think if you're patient with yourself and patient with your friends, it is a good thing, but also know that your whole life is going to change. And that's okay. We all make new friends along the way.
Yeah.
But if you have no expectations for anyone else, you won't have your heart hurt as much.
Yeah. That's true. And to understand that people are going to say things that they think are well-meaning, and they may just cut you to the quick.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They don't know how much it hurts. After my son died and people were making comments to me after his funeral, and I all of a sudden discovered, it kind of played back in my mind everything that I had ever said to anyone who had had a child that passed away. And I went back and apologized to those people and said, I had no idea that it would feel like this. And I feel so bad. I had no idea. I don't think that people mean to say stupid things.
Right.
I don't think they mean to hurt your feelings or your heart. But if we could teach anything to the community, it would be to, when someone has someone that has died, you can say, I'm sorry, and don't say anything else. Bite your tongue. Literally bite your tongue so you don't say anything else. And if you can do it without saying a word and just give someone a hug, that's far better. That conveys more of a message than what words ever could.
Yeah.
Share a tear with them. If you can share a tear, that's, it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I walk into the room with the family and I walk in and I look at the baby and I start to cry, and I'm the first one to cry because the parents haven't had permission to do so yet.
Yeah.
Because the medical staff is doing their job, they're doing what they have to do. They're crying out in the hallway. Parents have not been given permission yet to cry. And that's really a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So crying in front of someone else.
Yeah.
But if you can share a tear with them, give them a hug, hold their hand, and say nothing, that's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
You speak volumes by doing so.
Yeah. And listen.
Absolutely.
And listen.
Stop fixing.
Yeah. Without fixing. Exactly. And just to have somebody that checks on you and says, "How are you doing?" Or someone that can just really listen to you, and when you're trying to talk about your grief, not change the subject or have to get off the phone.
Right.
Yeah, that they can just hold the space for you. That is one of the biggest gifts that you can give people. And, even as we're talking, it is something that until you've gone through it, you can have empathy and you can want to relate. But once you've walked through it, it gives you a deeper level of compassion.
It does. It does. And, you think that families are doing okay because that's what they want you to think.
Hmm.
They can put on a good show for you. I had a friend who literally copied everything that was on my calendar. And she would call me up in the morning and say, "You need to feed your kids breakfast,"
Mm,
because I forgot. She would call me at noon and say, "It's lunchtime." She'd call me about 4 o'clock and say, "Take a hot dish out of the freezer and throw it into your oven."
wow.
You can tell them that by saying hot dish, right? Um, those types of things are huge for people to remember, that parents don't have the ability to remember things that need to be done.
Yeah.
You have a doctor's appointment this day, don't forget. To call, make sure that you're going to those things, make sure that your loved ones and family are actually remembering that they need to do those things, because they forget.
Hmm.
And you have to be the one to call, because they physically do not have the strength to pick up a phone and call you. They physically cannot do it. They want to. They're thinking about you, but they physically cannot do it. It weighs 1,000,000 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if they don't answer, understand that it's not that they don't appreciate you calling, and you can leave a message or leave a text.
Absolutely. And those are huge, huge. Because they might have the strength to push redial
Hmm.
or call back. They might be able to do that. But, it takes a special friend to be able to do that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's really valuable. So, if someone wanted to learn more about Iris, how can they find you?
And you go to our website. It's irisremembers.com or .org. You can have them both. So it's irisremembers.com. If you search Infants Remembered in Silence on Google or any of the search engines, we're going to come up about the first 200 sites that you find, which is good. We are also searching things on social media, Facebook, wherever. On Facebook, we have about 10 pages. So if you just search Infants Remembered in Silence, you'll find the listing of all of those there as well.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy to find us. They can always call the office, 507-334-4748. They can reach out to us. We're happy to help however we can. Sometimes just nice to know that there's an organization out there that's willing to help you, and you don't need to call or check in, but just to know that. You can also email us. It's support@irisremembers.com.
Okay.
Lots of ways to find us.
Okay. Thank you so much. And if someone wants to support your work, they can donate through those sites as well.
Yes, they can.
Okay.
There's donate buttons everywhere.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful.
Or they can call us if they're concerned about doing something online. They're welcome to call us as well.
Okay.
We also have people who still like to send in checks, and they're welcome to do that. Our address is 218 3rd Avenue Northwest in Faribault, Minnesota, 55021. And Faribault is spelled Faribault.
Excellent.
Lots of ways to find us.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for your time
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for asking us to be on here. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for everything that you're doing for families who are grieving.
Mm, Thank you. Thank you. And so, families, please know that there are resources out there, and there are others that understand or have walked in your shoes, and that you're not alone. And if you feel inspired to share your photos in front of one of the sites that are lit in honor of our babies gone too soon, please feel free to tag me on Instagram or on Facebook at Birth Ease Loss Support, and tag Iris as well. I'd love to see a hashtag of where you're from. And I would love the opportunity to honor you and remember and honor your sweet baby or child. Thank you again for listening. This episode of the Birth Ease podcast is dedicated to the Smith babies. You are always loved and safe within our hearts.
For more great conversations like these, or to find out more information and access Michelle's library of amazing guests, go to birtheaseservices.com/podcast. For more information on the Birth Ease method, Michelle's classes, meditations, and other services, go to birtheaseservices.com.